really important part of understanding sound waves is to have a mental picture of what the air is actually doing. This helps us to appreciate what the air is doing as a wave moves through it. So if I create a disturbance here, what happens is there is a scrunching up of the waves and it moves along in a pattern. If you remember, those scrunching up parts are called compressions. In the air, it is not a spring that compresses, but it's the atoms that they get closer together. And in between the compressions that mark one wavelength of this wave, there are rarefactions. But it'd be really handy if there was some way of displaying this. Here I have a diagram of the slinky. And I've done one wavelength in quite bold yellow and then another wavelength that is not in bold. What you can see is here we have a compression. And here, a rarefaction. But now what I want you to appreciate is the movement of the particles. Having scrunched together, as the wave is about to move, then some of these particles are going to be moving more than others. And I want you to imagine that the movement is greatest here and there. This is one whole wavelength of the wave. So at one point, the particles are moving towards the rarefaction, and at one point they're moving away from it. What it means is that we can actually display the cyclic nature of this longitudinal wave in a way that looks like this. If we say that that is the point here, then we say that at this point here, the motion is the most, and then it is the least, and then it is the most again. Now this is a bit screwy because this looks like I'm starting to draw a transverse wave. And in fact this will look like a transverse wave. If I take the side-to-side motion, which is most here, and display it as being the most by putting it at highest amplitude there, and the motion is the least here, and so that's the least here, then I can represent the forward, back and forward motion by just rotating those motions by 90 degrees and displaying them as if they were a transverse wave. So if I was to display what the sound was doing with time, then what I could do is I could actually plot it like a transverse wave even though it's not one. This is one of the hardest bits to grasp of this whole thing, is how a sound wave suddenly can be drawn like a transverse wave. It's because we've considered where it is moving the most and put it really high up on this plot, and where it is moving the least, and we put that where it is very low down on this plot. But using this idea that we can display a sound wave like this, it brings us to an experiment that allows you to see sound waves on an oscilloscope. So have a look at this equipment here. I've got an oscilloscope, and an oscilloscope, all it does is it plots the signal from a microphone onto this little screen here. And I have plugged into it a microphone just here, and you can see that as I speak it is producing this waveform on here. I also have a signal generator which, when plugged into a speaker, can produce a sound. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a sound and change its frequency, and then you can see on here what happens as a result. So I'm going to play a sound, and I want you to compare what happens when I change the frequency. Now I'm going to have to be quiet because this is hearing both the speaker and my voice. Now what you can see has happened is when the pitch became higher on the note, that the peaks on the oscilloscope got closer together. And so what is represented on here is high pitch and low pitch. Now ignore the fact that the height of these are changing. It is simply because this speaker it doesn't have uniform volume for all frequencies. It's better at producing some frequencies than others. And so low notes, being a subwoofer, it is really good at producing and produces them really loudly. High notes, it's less good at producing and they're not as loud. And so you can see that the sound can be represented on an oscilloscope using this setup. Now, a second important thing is volume. If I increase the volume or decrease the volume so that you can barely hear it, then what you'll see is that the amplitude of this wave has become really small. Quiet sound, loud sound. Quiet sound, loud sound. Low frequency, high frequency. It's also possible for me to see what my voice looks like on this waveform. If I wanted to make a low note, do, or lower than that, lower, or high, you'll notice that my voice doesn't produce a note that is as beautiful as the note that was produced by the signal generator. My notes are quite often composites of several notes superimposed, and this is how the human voice box produces such a wide variety of sounds. Oh, that was good. Did you see that? I am the human signal generator. Now, the human ear is a really remarkable thing. At some frequencies, you have really good hearing, and other frequencies you can't hear at all. In fact, frequencies below a certain frequency are inaudible to us. And we call these sounds lower than this frequency infrasound. In fact, there are some playing right now, and you can even see that there's basically nothing being picked up on my oscilloscope. But infrasound is an important part of the sound spectrum. It is the frequency of sound that whales and dolphins use to speak to each other. It is also a sound that is very, very loud when elephants use it to speak their language to each other. And did you know that elephants are speaking to each other and we just can't hear them make any noise whatsoever? Lightning also, and large explosions make infrasound like this. I'm going to turn the frequency of the infrasound up to this, and you should now see, can I feel it? I can feel it as a vibration, but I can't hear it with my ears. This is 20 Hertz. 20 times a second, this speaker cone is moving in and out. And as a result, soon it will start to produce something that I can hear. If you listen carefully, you might be able to hear it too. There. It's really quiet, but that is now 30 Hertz. And now you can just about see the waves starting to appear on this scale. 50 Hertz. 60 Hertz. 70 Hertz. You can see there 80 Hertz, 90 Hertz. And then this is the sorts of sound that comes from when there's a washing machine going in another room. The sort of sounds that get through walls really easily. And here, 100 Hertz. Now what I've got to do, because this scale on this is strange, I've got to unplug the speaker for a second, and then go up in scale, and then take it back down again, and then there we are, there we have it. So that was now 100 Hertz, and we're going to go up to 200 Hertz. This is 200 Hertz. So we're coming into the sort of range of like the bass section of the choir, 300 Hertz. Now this is almost the sort of frequency that a lot of people speak at. So our ears are tuned in to hearing frequencies of this variety. 400 Hertz, 500, 600, 700, 8, 9, 1000 Hertz. Again, turn it off, because we're going to go from 1000 Hertz all the way to 2000 Hertz. And this is where it starts to get quite painful. 3000 Hertz, 4000 Hertz, 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, 9000, 10,000. So coming back at 10,000, 12, 14, 16, and to my ears this has gone silent. But you can see on here that it's still detecting something. So these sounds are now inaudible to me, but a younger person could probably still hear this all the way up to here, 20,000 Hertz. Now this is the highest notes that we can hear with human hearing. Anything above this, like the very loud, high-pitched sounds I'm playing now but cannot hear, those are ultrasound. And ultrasounds are those with frequencies greater than 20,000 Hertz. And some things use ultrasound. Bats, for example, use ultrasound in their echolocation to fly at night. Also, they use ultrasounds to see unborn babies. They fire ultrasounds into the abdomen of a pregnant person, and the reflected waves come back. And so this range from 20 Hertz to 20,000 Hertz is called the human audible range.